The fog hung heavy over the Valley of Shadows, a place where the sun rarely touched the ground. In this valley lived a man named Julian. Julian was not a bad man, nor was he lazy, but he was stuck. He felt like he was walking through thick mud every single day. He was constantly tired, full of doubt and afraid of the future. He looked at his life and saw only broken pieces, dreams he never chased, promises he broke to himself, and a constant feeling of emptiness. One morning, unable to bear the weight of his own unhappiness any longer, Julian packed a small bag and walked toward the edge of the valley. He had heard a legend of a place called the Peak of Clarity, a mountaintop where the air was pure and the view changed people forever. But to get there, he had to pass through the 12 gates of the mind. This is the story of his journey and the lessons he learned, lessons that might just change your life too. Julian stood before the first gate. It was a massive stone archway, ancient and covered in moss. Sitting beside it was an old guardian with eyes as sharp as an eagle's. The guardian looked at Julian and asked, "Traveler, what is the most powerful weapon you own?" Julian touched the knife at his belt. "This?" The guardian laughed softly. "No, that can only cut wood or rope. The weapon that shapes your reality is hidden inside your skull. It is your mindset." Here, the story pauses to teach us something vital. Oh, mindset is a set of beliefs or a way of thinking that determines one's behavior and outlook. It is the operating system of your life. The guardian continued, "Julian, the world teaches you to chase money, jobs, and titles, but it rarely teaches you how to sharpen the weapon that creates all those things. If your mindset is weak, a small problem will crush you. If your mindset is strong, you can lose everything and rebuild it better. You are not stuck in a broken life. You are running on a broken mental system. This is your first lesson. Your mind is a weapon. Treat it like one." Julian nodded, understanding for the first time that his sadness wasn't the world's fault. It was his mind's lack of defense. He stepped through the first gate. The path beyond the gate was not easy. It was steep and rocky. Julian's legs burned and he wanted to sit down. He realized he had never actually practiced controlling his thoughts. He went to the gym for his body, but he left his mind weak. He came to a clearing where the second gate stood. Written on the archway were the words, "Train or decay." A voice echoed in the wind. "You feed your stomach every day. You wash your body every day. But when was the last time you trained your brain?" Julian realized he had let weeds grow in the garden of his mind. He had allowed fear and gossip to take root. To pass this gate, he had to sit in silence. He had to learn intention. Intention means doing something on purpose, with a plan, not just by accident. He sat for 10 minutes, watching his thoughts. He didn't check his phone. He didn't distract himself. He simply observed. He realized that his mind was wild, like an untrained dog. He vowed then and there, "I will not let my mind go soft. I will train it with silence, with reading, and with focus every single day." As he made this promise, the second gate opened. As Julian walked deeper into the forest, the shadows grew longer. Suddenly, he heard whispers. "You aren't good enough," the voices hissed. "You will fail just like before. Go back." Julian froze. He looked around for the enemy, but there was no one there. The voices were coming from inside him. He had reached the third gate, the gate of the inner critic. This is where most people turn back. They think these negative thoughts are the truth. But Julian remembered the guardian's advice. He stopped and listened to the voice. It sounded like his old school teacher who embarrassed him. It sounded like a fearful relative who told him to play it safe. Julian spoke out loud to the empty forest. "I hear you," he said firmly, "but you are not me." This is a crucial moment. You must learn to dissociate. To dissociate means to separate yourself from something else. Julian separated his true self from the negative voice. He realized that just because a thought appears, it doesn't mean it is true. He challenged the voice. When it said, "You are weak," he replied, I am learning to be strong. The whispers faded, and the path cleared. Beyond the forest, Julian found an old, abandoned library. This was the fourth gate. Inside, there were books with blank pages. A sign on the desk read, "Reprogram the code." Julian understood that fighting the negative voice wasn't enough. He had to replace it. He had to rewrite the software of his mind. He picked up a quill pen. He thought about a computer. If a computer has a virus, you don't yell at it. You change the code. Julian began to write new beliefs. Instead of, "I hope I can," he wrote, "I will." Instead of imagining failure, he closed his eyes and visualized success. To visualize means to form a mental image of something, to imagine it clearly. He saw himself reaching the mountaintop. He felt the cold air. He saw the sunrise. By practicing this visualization, he was tricking his brain into believing it was possible. He was acting like a warrior who wins the battle in his head before he even steps onto the field. He left the library feeling lighter, his mind running on new, powerful software. Suddenly, the sky turned black. A terrible storm broke out. Thunder shook the ground, and rain poured down like icy needles. Julian was terrified. He wanted to run and hide. He had reached the fifth gate, the bridge of storms. The bridge swayed violently in the wind. Julian's heart raced. He felt anger at the weather, fear of falling, and sadness for his wet clothes. But then he saw a statue of a general standing calm amidst the storm. The plaque read, "Emotions are messengers, not commanders." Julian paused. He realized he usually let his emotions drive the car. If he was sad, he quit. If he was scared, he hid. But a strong mind acts like a general. The general feels the fear but plans the attack anyway. Julian took a deep breath. He acknowledged the fear. He didn't ignore it, but he chose to walk forward anyway. He learned resilience, the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties. He crossed the bridge, wet and cold, but proud. He had controlled his emotions rather than letting them control him. On the other side of the bridge, the terrain was muddy and difficult. Julian slipped and fell into the dirt. He sat there, angry. "Why is this path so hard?" he shouted. "It's not fair. Other travelers have better boots. It's raining too much." He was trapped at the sixth gate, the trap of the victim. A reflection in a puddle caught his eye. It showed him as a small, helpless child. Julian realized he was blaming the mud, the rain, and his boots. This is the victim mentality. Thinking that the world is against you and you are powerless to change it. He remembered Nelson Mandela, who spent 27 years in prison, but never let his mind become a prisoner. Julian stood up, wiping the mud from his face. "I cannot choose the weather," he said, "but I can choose how I walk through it." He stopped waiting to be rescued. He took ownership of his struggle. The moment he stopped blaming, he found the strength to climb out of the mud. As the evening approached, Julian met a wise woman sitting by a fire. This was the seventh gate. She did not speak, she only listened. Julian sat by the fire and sighed. "I am so tired. I am just not a climber. I always struggle." The woman threw a handful of powder into the fire, and it flared up. "Your words are spells, traveler," she said. "Whatever you say after the words 'I am,' you become." Julian realized his language was keeping him weak. He was casting a spell of failure on himself. He decided to change his vocabulary. Instead of "I am tired," he said, "I am recharging." Instead of "I am not a climber," he said, "I am becoming stronger with every step." This lesson is about self-talk. Self-talk is the internal conversation you have with yourself. Julian learned that he had to speak to himself like a coach, not a critic. He changed his words, and his energy shifted instantly. Night fell, and Julian slept, but he woke up before the sun. The eighth gate was not a place, but a time, the morning. Most people wake up and immediately look at their phones, inviting chaos into their minds. Julian decided to wake up like a soldier. He made his bed perfectly. He stretched his body. He sat in silence for 5 minutes. He prepared his mind before the world could distract him. He realized that if he won the morning, he would win the day. He treated his morning routine with discipline. Discipline is the practice of training people to obey rules or a code of behavior. For Julian, it meant doing what was necessary, even when he didn't feel like it. He marched forward as the sun rose, feeling prepared for battle. The path entered a beautiful, strange forest filled with bright, flashing lights and sweet music. It was the 9th gate, the forest of distraction. Fairies and illusions danced around him, offering him rest, entertainment, and easy pleasures. "Just sit for a minute," they whispered. "Look at this shiny thing." Julian knew that distraction was the enemy of greatness. It felt innocent, just a small break, just one check of the phone, but he knew it was a parasite eating his focus. He focused his eyes on the path ahead. He starved the distractions. He knew that focus, what is like a muscle, it gets stronger the more you use it. He walked straight through the lights without turning his head, proving he was the master of his attention. Finally, Julian reached a massive cliff. There was no bridge. The only way across was a leap to a ledge far away. It looked impossible. This was the 10th gate, belief versus fear. His logical mind said, "Don't do it. It's unsafe." Fear showed him images of falling. But deep down, a new voice spoke, the voice of belief. Belief. Here doesn't mean knowing for sure. It means trusting in your ability to figure it out. Julian asked himself, am I making this decision out of fear or out of belief? He realized that if he waited for the fear to vanish, he would stand on that cliff forever. Fear is automatic. Courage is a choice. He took a deep breath, visualized the landing, and jumped. He landed hard on the other side, scraping his knees, but he was alive. He had chosen belief. The final climb to the peak was the hardest part of all. His lungs burned, his muscles screamed. He was in pain. This was the 11th gate. Julian wanted to stop. "Why does it hurt so much?" he cried. But then he remembered the gym. Pain is not a punishment. It is a transformation. Transformation means a thorough or dramatic change in form or appearance. The pain was breaking down his old weak self, so a new, strong self could be built. He stopped seeing pain as an enemy and started seeing it as his personal trainer. He embraced the burn. He kept climbing, knowing that the struggle was the only way to the summit. Julian pulled himself up over the final ledge. He stood at the peak of clarity. The air was crisp. He could see the whole world below him. The fog, the valley, the dark forests. There was a mirror at the top. This was the 12th gate. Julian looked into it. He didn't see the tired, sad man who left the valley. He saw a man with fire in his eyes, a man who didn't overthink, but acted. He realized the final lesson. Don't think like a loser. Act like a winner. A loser waits to feel confident before he moves. A winner moves, and confidence follows. Julian stood tall, not because he was arrogant, but because he had proven to himself that he could survive the journey. Julian returned to the valley, but he was no longer part of the fog. He walked with purpose. He spoke with power. He faced problems with a calm mind. And now I turn to you, listening to this story. You are standing at the edge of your own valley. The world is loud, and it wants you to stay small. It wants you to be distracted and afraid. But remember, Julian, remember that your mind is a weapon, but only if you sharpen it. Remember that fear is a reaction, but courage is a decision. You are not here just to survive. You are here to evolve. Your life is not determined by what happens to you, but by the strength of the mind that handles it. So, take these lessons, build your fortress, sharpen your blade, and start climbing your own mountain today, because the view from the top, it is worth every step.